Hello there, I am your host, ChampDeputy4, and this is BeepBox Modding, where I will be explaining in this short video tutorial how to get started on making BeepBox mods. BeepBox, if you are unaware, is a music making website that allows you to create synthetic tunes and many other interesting sounds that can be ranged from chiptune-like songs to replications of human speech. You may be familiar with other music programs like FL Studio, GarageBand, BandLab, and perhaps Family Tracker. BeepBox is like those for who may be unaware. Though, one thing about BeepBox is that it's quite limiting in many ways, which is where BeepBox mods come in. Many BeepBox mods exist, like Jumpbox, Ultrabox, Goldbox, Abyssbox, WonkyBox, and Shitbox 4, just to name a few. Each of these serve different purposes and are all unique in their own way. Now that we have explanations out of the way, let's talk about setup. There are a few things we're going to be needing to start off with. First off is Node.js. Simply download and install this. Next is npm. You don't need to install this, but the website has all the documentation you would ever need about npm, so I suggest at least bookmarking this repository if you're having issues with npm. Next is Git. Git is the program we're going to be using to compile the mods later, but right now all you need to do is download and install this. Finally is GitHub Desktop. You'll be using this program to make updates to your Beep mod. Now, one last thing I suggest installing is VS Code, or VSC for short. VSC is a programming app that is perfect for Beep modding, so I highly suggest using this program specifically for your coding needs. There are two ways to make a BeepBox mod: the new repository method and the fork method, both with their ups and downs. In this video, I'll be explaining the new repository method, though if it is requested enough, I'll also create another video about the fork method, and possibly a third video explaining the difference between them and their pros and cons. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Now that we have all we need, next up is to get the source code of our BeepBox mod that we want to mod ourselves. All BeepBox mods can be compiled in the same way if there is a non-compiled version of it. That means that all mods that don't provide source code, like Modbox or Sandbox for example, cannot be compiled. Although you can modify them, I don't suggest doing that. For this video, I'll be using BeepBox as an example. First off, we need to go to beepbox.co to get the source code, which can be typically found at the bottom of the website. This should be consistent between most BeepBox mods. Once we go to this GitHub repository, we need to click this code button here and press download zip. Once this zip file is downloaded, we'll extract this and place the extracted folder in a repository we're going to be using later. For my example, I'll just place this inside of my already existing Abyssbox folder, but for you it can be anywhere as long as it's inside of your user directory. Now that we have our Beep mod in place, you should name your folder the name you want your BeepBox mod to be called, plus either _typescript or -source after it, like how I have Abyssbox source here. Now that we have our own Beep mod in place, we need to open up Git Bash. This can be found inside of the Start menu if you use Windows. Once we open Git Bash, we need to type our command to get to our Beep mods folder. This can be done by typing cd and then the directory path that we need to take to get to your folder. This starts from the user directory, which can lead into things like pictures, your downloads, your desktop, and your documents, to name a few examples. In my example, we'll be starting by typing the place we want to go from the user directory. Since Git automatically is set up to start in the user directory, there's no need to type that in, so we simply just need to add downloads after cd. Now, there are multiple ways to do this. Of course, you can type out each folder you want to go to separated by slashes like this, or you can type out multiple cd commands as long as it ends up with you in the folder that you need to be in. In this example, we need to go to the folder that contains our source code. You can tell it's the correct folder when you see folders called Editor, Synth, and Website contained inside. Now that we're in the correct folder, all we need to do is run npm install and wait. Once this is finished, you simply need to run npm run build. This will compile 3 major folders into one usable folder. It's worth noting that this one command actually runs 3 different commands: npm run build editor, npm run build player, and npm run build synth. I'll briefly go into detail about these. Build editor compiles all the files inside of the editor and synth folders into 4 files inside of the website folder. You can identify these files as .js files with the word editor in them. Build player compiles the files inside of all three editor, synth, and player folders into the player folder inside of the website folder as .js files that have the word player in them. If you make major changes to how the editor sounds, it's suggested that you should also compile this one too. Build a synth is a command built to compile the synth example index.html. If you're wondering, BeepBox can be played outside of its own website with just the link alone. This is perfect for web games that want to save space. You can identify these files as .js files with the word synth in them. Now that you understand what each command does, we need to go into our website folder and open up the index.html file. Once you do this, you will notice that you have yourself a working version of BeepBox locally stored inside of your computer. Now, if you didn't compile earlier, your mod would look a bit more like this, which is not ideal if you want it to actually work. That's why we compiled the mod first before we test it. Now that we have a local build of BeepBox, we can now create a new repository. I'll explain how to quickly make a source code repository and an app repository. Though first, we should open up GitHub Desktop to start off. If you haven't, sign into the account you're going to be using to host your Beep mod. Now that we've done that, we need to navigate over to the current repository dropdown and click Create New Repository. Now we click the Choose button next to the directory path. Once we do that, we need to go to the folder containing our source code. Now, once we do this, we need to make sure that we press select on the folder outside of the source code folder. The reason for this will be clear shortly. Now that we've done that, we need to name the repository exactly what you named your source code folder. Once you do that, we need to click Create Repository. Once we do this, we can now press Publish Repository and make sure that your new repo is not private when you press Publish Repository again. Now that you've done that, you need to go to the GitHub website while under the same account that we used to GitHub Desktop. Next, we want to navigate to the top left here and then click the sandwich icon. Next, we need to go down to where it says repositories, and then we need to find the repository we desire. If you made it here, then congratulations! Your mod now has its own source code repository, and now you know how to find it. Though wait, this isn't the place that we're going to be using to host our website. Instead, we're going to be using a different method to host our website. It's quite similar to what we did before, but it's slightly different. Let's go back to GitHub Desktop and create a new repository. This time, unlike our previous repo, we can name this whatever we like, though I suggest naming it the name of your BeepBox mod and -app at the end, like how I have a BeepBox app here. Once we've created this repo, we don't want to be too hasty and publish our Beep mod just yet. Instead, what we will be doing is very important, so pay attention. What you want to do is go into the source code, go to your website folder, and copy everything that's inside of that folder. Once we do that, what we want to do is go back to our newly created repo folder, and we need to paste all of the website folder's contents into this folder. Once we do that, you'll notice that GitHub Desktop has updated to tell you that there are new changes inside of your repo folder. Simply just name your commit here. For your own sake, I suggest being as descriptive as possible with these names, and pressing the blue commit to main button here. Now we can publish this repository the same way that we did before. Now that our repository is published, we now need to go back to the GitHub website and, using the same method as before to locate our repository, go to the newly created repository and go to its settings over here. Once you do that, go to the Pages category and change this branch option from None to Main. Now you need to press the Save button. All that's left is pretty simple. Just wait about 2 minutes, then go to a new tab and type https:// your username, in my example that would be chomptop84.github.io/ and the name of the repository you just created, and press enter. If you've done everything correctly, you have successfully created a new GitHub Pages site containing your very own BeepBox mod. Congratulations! You are now the proud owner of a BeepBox mod. Of course, this video won't be going into specifics about how to create specific features, as this video is only about starting you off, but I hope that this tutorial was useful to you in some way. If you've run into anything specific, like that you need help with during the video, please comment down below what happened, and I'll be sure to answer them as soon as possible. This has been BeepBox Modding. See you next time.